The wind howled across the cliffs of Coldharbor, carrying with it the stench of salt and decay. Nathaniel Crane had come seeking solitude, driven by the desire to finish his manuscript on forgotten maritime cults. Coldharbor, a village lost to the march of time, seemed perfect. Crumbling stone cottages, crooked streets, and the incessant sound of the waves crashing below. His rented cottage stood on the edge of the cliffs, a sentinel overlooking the endless Black Sea. The landlord had warned him about the sounds. Every night, just after the tide peaked, the villagers whispered of strange, guttural chants emanating from the abyss below. Nathaniel dismissed it as superstition, remnants of the old seafarer myths he was here to document. Yet, the first night he stayed, he heard them. A deep, resonant melody of voices rising from the ocean. They seemed too synchronized, too human, to be mere wind over water. Intrigued rather than terrified, he decided to investigate. The villagers avoided him when he asked about the sounds. One old fisherman, his eyes clouded with cataracts, finally muttered, "It's the cathedral, boy. Best leave it alone. It calls to the living to join the drowned." Curiosity drove Nathaniel to the cliffs during low tide. Beneath the jagged rock face, he noticed a peculiar phenomenon. The water receded far beyond what was natural, revealing a stretch of blackened sand. And there, jutting from the muck, were spires. They were not spires of stone, but of some alien material, smooth and cold, pulsating faintly with an eerie bluish glow. They rose like the ribs of a buried beast, and at their center was an archway. Despite the warning whispers that clawed at the back of his mind, Nathaniel descended the slippery path. The archway loomed larger as he approached, and the air seemed heavier. Etched into its surface were symbols, spirals, and angular shapes that seemed to shift when not directly observed. Crossing the threshold, he found himself in a vast, airless chamber. The walls shimmered like the surface of a stagnant pool, reflecting grotesque, elongated shadows. In the center, a pit yawned wide, filled with a viscous black substance. From the shadows emerged figures, not entirely human, but not entirely alien. Their flesh glistened as though perpetually wet, and their eyes glowed like embers submerged in water. They sang in low, guttural tones, a dirge that resonated in Nathaniel's bones. He wanted to run, but his legs were frozen. One of the creatures, a towering figure with an elongated skull and fingers like coral branches, raised a hand. The singing ceased. "You are not one of us," it rasped in a voice that sounded like a tide retreating over shattered glass. "But you hear the call," Nathaniel stammered. "What are you?" "We are the keepers of the cathedral. We guard the veil where the drowned god slumbers." The creature gestured to the pit. "The time has come. He stirs, and we must offer a voice to guide him." Nathaniel's blood turned to ice as the creatures moved toward him. He felt the pull of their song, not just in his ears, but deep within his chest, as though his soul was being drawn to the pit. With a desperate burst of adrenaline, he fled. The creatures didn't follow, but watched, their haunting melody echoing in his ears as he stumbled back to the surface. The villagers were waiting for him when he returned, their eyes cold and accusatory. "You shouldn't have gone down there," one spat. "Now it knows you." That night Nathaniel dreamed of the pit. The viscous black substance rose, and from it emerged a figure, a monstrous amorphous form with countless eyes and mouths that whispered his name. When he awoke, the chanting was louder than ever, coming not from the sea but from inside his mind. The tide had risen and the spires were gone, swallowed by the ocean once more. But he knew it was not over. The call was inside him now, growing stronger with each passing moment. And as the waves crashed against the cliffs, Nathaniel realized that it wasn't solitude he had sought, but silence. A silence he would never know again.